I don't really know how to start these sorts of videos, so I'm just gonna set things straight. For every game that we're gonna be talking about here, I'll tell the basic rules and features that each game has. For example, Chuzzles Deluxe is only a 6x6 grid. Afterwards, I'll bring my Chuzzle emulator, which from this point forwards, which we are now going to call Buzzle, or Block Chuzzle, yeah, in which I'll be replicating the rules that I've stated earlier to try and pop the most amount of single colored Chuzzles in one match. I'll probably explain more about Buzzle in a bit, but for now, let's talk about Chuzzle Deluxe. Woo! Whoa! Now, to those who don't remember, Chuzzle, or Chuzzle Deluxe, was originally released in 2005 for Windows and Mac. So, what does Buzzle even do in the first place, you might be asking? Well, they exist. Yeah, they do exist. Ooh. But they don't got eyes. Also, we're going to assume that there's no fat Chuzzles, no long Chuzzles, no whatever other gimmicky Chuzzles that are featured in the later games. Just the regular one. That's it. Anyways, I'm gonna do the thing. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah. I'll see you later in the room that changes colors and stuff. Yeah. See ya later. Yeah. Hello, it's me. Welcome into Buzzle. As you can see here, we have the base rules for Chuzzle here. Chuzzle Deluxe, whatever. 6x6 grid, match-free stuff, and yeah. As you can see here, we have the board. Wow, awesome. Now, whenever you see these green tiles here, it usually means that they have to be one specific color. And with match-free games, this does not make sense. So, we're gonna use this little paper here to change the board. Woo. And then, wow, the board got changed. Now to explain another thing. These little weird, random colored puzzles, these puzzles right here, these can be any color. It doesn't matter if they're green, doesn't matter if they're blue, doesn't matter if they're purple. They can be whatever color we want, as long as they are not the same color as these other ones, which has to be one specific color. So, orange, for instance. Over here, we have this little funny grid. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of these puzzles here, in pretty specific locations. Now, this does follow the second rule from before, where none of the none of the puzzles are matching with each other, because well, they're all either in ones or twos, which means this works. And so we can change the board again so that it gives us our final match, which would give us our final number. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna use this little line here, move it a little bit like this, like how this arrow is pointing. And then we get this. A big H made of puzzles. This would be popped, and that would give us 11, a total of 11 puzzles broken in one match. Wow, awesome. Pretty cool. So that, in theory, would most likely be the most amount of Chuzzles you can do in Chuzzle Deluxe for one single color and stuff. Wow, awesome, insane even. I'm gonna go back to the color room. Well, with that out of the way, we now have a final score of 11 for Chuzzle Deluxe. It's less than a dozen, but it's still a lot more than the way more possible 8 that you would get an achievement for in the game. Anyways, let's switch over to Chuzzle 2, or as I want to call it sometimes, for no particular reason, Chuzzle Squared. Yes, I thought about that joke for more than 10 seconds. Chuzzle 2. Originally released on mobile devices in 2018, specifically Android and iOS, and soon to be released on PC, Chuzzle 2 has a lot of new things compared to Chuzzle 1, including but not limited to power-ups, new minigame types, lots of other things, and most importantly, other grid sizes. As far as I know, the smallest grid size that you can get in the game, which is in the dual mode, is a 5x5 grid, while the biggest one, as far as I know, is 7x8, which gives us a lot more space for stuff. So, let's ask ourselves the same question as before, but for Chuzzle 2. Well, hi, it's me again. Here I am, doing Chuzzle 2 stuff. We're here with a 7x8 grid. Yay! We're gonna do the same stuff as before. This time we have power-ups allowed because it's Chuzzle 2, but puzzle. So, we kind of already know from before, so let's figure it out. Over here we have the grid, same issue as before from the beginning. So let's bring the paper. Woo. And then, oh, we have a grid here. As you can see, it looks really similar to the one in Chuzzle 1, because, well, it is. It's the same thing, except we have one extra link, which means we can do a little bit more than before. So, bring the paper out, do the little shebang here again, and boom! With the little arrow, we have one extra over here. It's an H, but with an extra line, which gives us a grand whopping 12. That's even more than Chuzzle 1. But that's not the only thing we can do here, because again, we have the power-ups in Chuzzle 2, or Puzzle 2, or whatever. So, let's bring the paper here to reset it back to normal. Well, it's reset. I'm gonna make the paper change it to a different thing. We're gonna get into this, where it's two different colors. Now the yellow one is basically treated the same as the green one instead of the gray one from earlier here, where it can be any color. This time it has to be a different color for each of these yellow ones here, which means this could be orange and this could be purple, for example. Now, why do we want it to do like this? We can't do much with it. I mean, we can barely do matches of freer. But with the color destroyer, we can destroy the yellow ones. So, let's destroy the yellow ones like here. As you can see, there's no space for the other greens, which means they naturally fall down. And so, once they fall down, they'll all go to this specific spot here. And since that's half the board, that's a whopping 28 Chuzzles in one singular match. Now, of course, this is a very unrealistic thing even for this theory of using the paper as our solution, because, well, you can't get a grid like this unless if it's something like the puzzles, and you can't do matches on the puzzles. So, in conclusion, 12 is the realistic number, but technically, if it can literally do anything, 28 would be the number. Well, here we are again. This time with a number of 12. I mean, technically there's also 28, but I don't know if anyone's gonna care or count that. Anyways, on to Chuzzle Snap! Chuzzle Snap is another mobile-only Chuzzle game that was originally released in 2020. And the only big difference between the two original games and Snap is the fact that you basically have to place the Chuzzles in a grid. Specifically in an 8x8 grid. Wow, awesome, cool. I don't really like it compared to 2, especially since it feels like a separate mode that could have just been tacked onto 2, but I kinda get why it is separated at the same time. Oh, and one last thing. There are at least 2 new abilities in the game Mr. Moneybags, which doesn't really matter for this video, and Downward Dog. Anyway, so for last time, it's time to bring over Buzzle. Hello again, it's me again. Yep, it's me. We're here, buzzling for the first time with the Chuzzle Snap rules. As you can see, the grid is 8x8. Wow, awesome. And it's empty because, well, it starts out empty in Snap. I probably should have added in the rules, but too lazy. Anyways, we're gonna do the same goal as before. Wow, awesome. And here we have the paper. So paper, do something for me now, please. There we go. Now over here we have 2 buzzles up and down, and 2 buzzles right and left over here. We're kind of doing the same thing as Chuzzle 1 and 2 from earlier, but again, since we can't move the Chuzzles, we can only put them in their places. We can only do something like this because we can't move them up, down, or left, right, or whatever. So, what we're supposed to do is that we bring these 2 little buzzles to this little spot here. And that gives us a total of 10 buzzles. That's 10 total Chuzzles for the question on this game. But, of course, let's just use the paper again, real quick. Because, once again, we have power-ups. And not only do we have some of the powers from Chuzzle 2, but we also have some of the power-ups from Chuzzle Snap. Well, now the board is empty again, and we'll just bring the paper again. We're gonna do the same strategy as 2, but this time with a different ability. So here it is. Our board is half full with a bunch of specific things from earlier. Now this is technically possible because we can place single Chuzzles. We would just have to be extremely lucky enough to get each of the same color and stuff. Now, we need to use this ability. We need to use the Downward Dog so that all these little Chuzzles or buzzles can go all the way down to the bottom of the board. And when we use it like so, all the buzzles fall down to the bottom part of the board, which gives us a total of 32. So, while it is more than possible to do 10, we could technically do 32, or up to 32 specifically. And here we are again, for the last time, with Chuzzle Snap having a final score of 10, or specifically 32. But, again, don't know if it should count or not, and stuff. Well, yeah, those are the numbers. They exist. They're here. They're right there. What can we do with them? I don't know. I mean, you can eat it, maybe. Alright, well, anyways, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again soon. I don't know if you will, though. You can give it a like, a comment, unless you already commented earlier about the joke. Maybe subscribe even. I don't know. But, yeah, have a Chuzzle day.